Hi there, Ischa here, and welcome to the Higher Life. Now in today's episode, I really want to cut to the core and unpack why I focus on empowerment in the work that I do. Now, I've been working as a transformational life coach since around 2009, 2010. However, I wasn't always focused on this specific area. I used to work a little bit more as a life coach, helping people find power in their everyday lives to make good choices and to understand why they make the choices they do, or why they may be experiencing particular patterns or cycles of patterns with people in relationship, for example. I used to have a pattern where I'd always have an issue with my boss at work, and it took me a while and a lot of self-investigation to realize that, perhaps I have a pattern which has an issue with authority. So it's very interesting when you start diving into your so-called everyday problems, and maybe they seem like first world problems, but you can never ever underestimate the opportunity that is available, even with the smallest challenges in our life. And it doesn't matter how wealthy and abundant your life is already. We're always moving in and out of relationships, which bring us into a kind of self-questioning around our triggers, around, what we're looking for in relationships, what we're looking for in our lives. That's what's so exciting about being a life coach. You get to work with hundreds, if not thousands of people exploring these questions that really come back to very core questions. Who am I? What am I here for? And how does life really work? There's a lot of confusion out in the world as to the true nature of life. So for me, after many years, 15 years of really working in this area, I know that it all comes back to power. The human relationship with power, but in fact, the human as a source of power. And that's why I call it personal power. Now, it's of course taken me into what would be called the spiritual realm. And as I've said in many videos before, I'm not naturally a spiritual, or let's say religious person. I don't join spiritual communities, not because I have anything against them. I think it's fantastic that tribes of people come together and explore particular aspects of the human experience. It's just, for me, I'm more of a practical person. I like to go out in my life and really embrace and take on the enriching possibilities of a day-to-day ordinary life. And I also am a busy woman. I have children to look after and my own well-being to look after, and I'm married, which takes energy. I'm a creative person. I love doing these videos and exploring, new ways or very efficient ways for people to live in a more empowered way. So that's a lot, and I like to rest as well. So, in this way, what I'm really looking for, and what I've always been looking for in my life, is what kind of tools or insights or wisdom is out there already. What, other human beings have already explored these topics for centuries. So what can I draw on from their wisdom that can help me live more fully day to day? So I have a very clear objective. Now, working only in a spiritual area, for example, or only working in my so-called potential at work, or only working on healing or dissolving those dysfunctional patterns that have been conditioned into me through family legacy, through generations and generations of humans, trying to work out how to be more powerful in the world, and perhaps not achieving it and suffering or struggling and having certain sort of strategies to be able to cope with that. These are all areas that you can explore. But at the end of the day, I just want to cut to the core. So again, it brings you back to empowerment. I think it's important, and I think that's what this lesson is going to focus on, to differentiate between walking the path of personal empowerment and walking the spiritual path. Now, the path of personal empowerment, it incorporates and integrates spiritual wisdom. But too often spirituality ends up being some kind of devotion process that takes you out of this very core pathway. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we look historically, religion, for example, in the beginning of time, human beings would often look outside of themselves up to the sky to explain, to try and answer these questions of why am I here, who am I, these more esoterical, spiritually minded questions. But also they sought out power in times of suffering and struggle. It's safe to say that most human beings only really engage with religion and spiritual teachings when they're in need, either in need of a community, in need of the soothing aspects of being part of a religious tribe, in need of guidance, in their morality, which is where religion sort of overtook this morality area, or they're suffering and struggling and they need some extra energy, some extra power to get through it. And I think in modern life, it's safe to say that as many people have turned away from religion or have become suspicious of more archaic or tribal viewpoints on a God up in the sky that rewards and punishes, we find that the modern human, for example, tends to gravitate towards spiritual teachings and spiritual communities when they feel dislocated and disillusioned with life, and they're looking for more meaning. And that's a form of suffering. Or, when you experience the extreme loss or illness, and you really need to lean into a higher wisdom, a higher perspective, in order to give you the strength to meet your daily life. So we see how useful spiritual teachings have been. But there's also been a thread through all these spiritual teachings and religions which is really trying to wake humanity up to the fact that they are a source of power in the world. And if they don't manage their power efficiently, effectively, and wisely, they will create a lot of havoc. And really that's probably where this hell and heaven concepts have come from. That a human being who is ignorant to their own power creates hell. And a human being that is very awake and alert to their own power, or themselves as a being of power, create a certain sort of heaven in the world. And put simply, the work that I'm doing is really about helping a human being wake up and be actually skilled, have that access to their inner resourcefulness to create heaven in the world, or at least to acknowledge that the world can already be a heaven if we come at it with the right perception. And it's all down to perception, because the human being is a singular perception point in a larger universal perception. So as human beings, we live out a personal life and we view things through a personal perspective. So all the power comes back to perception and how perception is created and conditioned. Why is it that I see the world in one way and my husband sees it differently? We're both human beings. We both grew up in pretty similar conditions, but we perceive things very differently. I may be more of an optimist and he may be more of a realist, as he likes to say. But the thing is, there's conditioning, there's cultural conditioning. He's French, I'm Australian with a Dutch background. There's familial conditioning, what kind of family systems did we grow up in? There's generational conditioning, what are the beliefs of the generation that I am part of, and so on. And then we have a whole lot of other conditioning points, such as archetypal conditioning, all things that I unpack at the Higher Life Academy if you choose to walk the path of personal transformation. But perception is that power point. So we always want to be awake and alert to the fact that perception is creative. That is, it can move from one viewpoint to another very quickly. It's not actually fixed. And the self that perceives, therefore, moves with that perception. So I may see the world in one way as a mother, and in another way as a wife, and in another way as a woman, in another way as a coach. So my self is transforming constantly as that viewpoint or that role shifts. I always come back to Baba Papa, a book that my kids loved growing up. It's a French series and it's still relevant today. And it has this family of transforming beings. And every time they want to do something different, they just transform into musical instruments or into cooking utensils or gardening. It's fabulous, but it's actually extremely insightful. It's talking about the transformative nature of the self and how playful and creative we can be with it when we are fully empowered, that is, awake and alert to the true nature of being human and the power that we are. Now, put simply, The mind operates in a created or conditioned reality, and we call it the collective. And in this, we sort of participate in a kind of delusion where we all agree that this is what matters. This is not what matters. This is what our value is as a human being. This is where the power lives or lies. And we're very addicted to this system. We're very addicted to seeking out to be powerful or to avoid being powerful in this system. And it's kind of like entering into a mirage, playing a game and then forgetting that you're in the game and thinking it's real. But the kind of power that we chase or that we try to cultivate within us through any kind of achievement or progress or performance program, and I know these well as a coach, is playing the game in the conditioned, fabricated reality. The natural way is that when we realize that as a human being we are present physically in form on this earth, we have energy, we are an energy being, therefore the way we speak, the way we move our bodies, the way we do things in the world, that is our presence in action, and it's very powerful. So if I respond to my child from compassion, I'm creating more compassion in the atmosphere. If I respond with impatience, I'm creating more impatience. And the energy vibration of the room will actually play out whatever energy I'm putting into it. And I talked about this in a previous video about breathing in oxygen as a human being, being supported by the elements, and then breathing out, the way that we express ourselves out into the world. So this is where our true power lies. However, the biggest blind spot right now for humanity, and one that I think speak to in almost every video, is we have a massive addiction that we're not aware of. We're addicted to doing, because we think that doing is living. And this is the mantra of the mind. Do, do, do. Because the mantra has mistaken movement, the natural capacity for the human body to move and express itself, as doing. And because it's very mental, the doing becomes often very intellectual, list writing, thinking all the time, strategizing, planning, projecting. This is all work from the mind. So this addiction to doing, this addiction to activity, doing too much, being constantly active, not even physically but mentally, it is manifesting and being reflected back to us through virtual technologies like the internet and social media. It is showing us how busy our minds are, how loud, how aggressive, because everyone is speaking at each other in order to try and gain attention, in order to feel more empowered. Through wealth accumulation, through influence, through just needing to voice every single thought, and therefore reinforcing that thought in itself is a useful exercise. So this addiction to thinking, this addiction to doing, this addiction to activity, it's raising the heat in the atmosphere. And that's getting reflected back to us through environmental trauma. We see our environment going into a state of trauma and getting very extreme, and we seem to be in a complete denial, because even though we speak about it, we're still active. We're still educating our children to be even more active than we were and the generations before us. So this requires a very big wake-up call. And actually, the wake-up call is a wonderful, delightful message. That is, chill, relax, stop doing, start emptying out your lives and your children's lives, and start getting slower and more gentle in the way that you live your day-to-day life. Focus on the path of personal empowerment. This is worthy work to be doing, and it will generate massive positive impact out in the world, much more than being online every day, reading the newspapers, campaigning, writing emails, dropping texts and tweets about how bad everything is. That's pollution. We need to wake up to the fact that every time you are online, on social media, texting, reading emails, signing up, you can even feel the energy there. It is polluting physically the planet. So we need to communicate less, be more self-reflective, be more present in ourselves. Go, I am here. I'm in the now. I need to pay attention to and tend to the relationships in my life, to my own well-being. Sure, use social media for things that genuinely matter, but we need to discern between vacuous communication, marketing-driven communication, and actually worthwhile solidarity and activism and advocatism. This is the time that we need to get very clear on how we use our energy correctly. And that means, as a human being, the correct way of being in the world. And it's a really big work here, but it's fun and it's rewarding and it's loving. So if this is something that feels exciting to you, you actually want to wake up and know that the work that you're doing, the way your energy is moving in the world, is supporting not only optimal health for you and well-being, but is lifting the quality of the spiritual vibration of the planet. Then you want to be checking out personal transformation, any type of path of personal transformation. Obviously, spiritual work and spiritual communities are going to get you on this path. But if you're not keen on going too deep into those types of ideologies or teachings, or just don't have the time or the mind for that kind of esoteric work, then absolutely look at the work I'm doing at the Higher Life Academy. I really cut to the core. It's all about simplifying the pathway, making it practical, waking you up to the fact that you are a source of power in the world, that personal power comes through perception. So fine-tuning, refining, and having a high-quality perception is what's going to make you the most empowered being on the planet. And this comes from cultivating your inner resourcefulness, your human virtues, and letting go of the progress mindset. That needs to stop. Even rethinking the way you're educating yourself and your kids. It's all about human relationship, to self, to other, to planet, to universe. And there is so much dynamic, wonderful intelligence that is being made available in the mainstream about human dynamics, human relationship systems, intergenerational trauma, intergenerational potential. It's so exciting. So I'm probably going to leave the lesson here because this is a big topic. Just wanted to really clarify about that differentiation on spirituality, personal spirituality, and personal empowerment. It's all about the power, recognizing that we are the source of personal power and that power doesn't exist outside of ourselves. So being empowered is working with your own inner resourcefulness as a human being. And there is a way to actually map that out at the Higher Life Academy. So check it out, www.higherlifeacademy.com. Sign up or subscribe for free teachings at Higher Life TV, or just stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, take care and love life.